And we are back. Real American Freestyle number 3 coming your way from Chicago, November 29th. Really excited about this. I'm even more excited to be sitting here with my two partners, Chad Bronstein, Izzy Martinez. Guys, thanks for joining us, man.
Eric, I'm excited to be on here with you.
Well, we've been running pretty hard and putting this thing together from day one. It's been like we're on a treadmill 24 hours a day. But before we get into all that, and before we talk about the card, because you guys put together an amazing card for Chicago, how do you two know each other? Let's go back a little bit.
Yeah, so I was in Tampa. I went to a wrestling program called Caveman, and I was going to Chicago, and I'm like, I'm an anal dad, right? Wants my kid to have the best, the best wrestling room. So I asked Coach Joyce of Tampa. I said, hey, where should I go in Chicago? He's like, I don't really know, but I know this guy, Izzy Martinez. And me being who I am, I went online. Izzy's obviously who he is, which is he's got a website, but it's hard to get a hold of him. So as we all
we're gonna get into it a little bit,
as we all know. So I just sent him, and he did get back to me. And I walked into his gym, and I sat there because my son, at the time he was young. So
what's his name?
Chase.
Chase. And how old is Chase?
He's 9.
Wow.
At the time he was 7. My wife just got out of the hospital, and he had anxiety of being by himself. But Izzy's program is no dads are allowed in the program, and he calls every dad a crazy dad. So he's not there. I walk in, his coach is like, "Hey, you got to get out of here." I'm like, "I'm not getting out of here. My son's 7. He's not going to stay here by himself." So I guess Coach Downey, who's now part of our team, he goes to Izzy. He goes, "This guy won't leave." Anyways, fast forward, I met Izzy. His program's incredible. And I just told him about some stuff I wanted to do and plans these things. He listened, and then he started to get engaged, and we became really close friends. But out of pure respect for the sport of wrestling and how great he is with the kids and the program he's built, that's how I got there. But it's from a coach that said, "Go see this guy, Izzy Martinez." Never met Izzy ever. It just said, "This guy's the guy."
What was your first impression when you met Chad?
He was a lot.
Still is.
Just a confident guy, so he knows what he wants, and he's articulate with his words, and he just had a passion. And I've seen a lot of great wrestlers become great, and not only because they had great coaches, but majority of the time, and most of the time, is because they had dads that believed in them. And Chad believed in his son, and wanted the best for him. So you got to respect that. Even though he was kind of a pain in the ass at first and didn't want to leave the gym, you respect guys that are passionate. You respect guys that believe their kid can be great, and that's the making of a champion. So
one of the things I noticed about you, Izzy, when I first met you and I was at your school and watched you with kids, it seems like that's your joy in life, is working with those kids. I mean, obviously you've trained so many world champion MMA fighters, UFC, and around the world, and you've coached freestyle wrestlers to world championships, high school championships, national championships. But it seems to me that kids is where your heart is.
Yeah, the sport of wrestling has just changed my life since I was, just a young boy. And there was certain aspects of the sport that I needed. And a lot of it was just coaching at a certain point. My dad was a phenomenal coach, but he was my dad. So there was some times where you just didn't have what you really needed. And you need a great coach and you need a great dad. And, my job is to fill that role of a great coach and not be any other dads. So that's just basically, how I run the wrestling school. We love the kids first, and we push them really hard.
They have a lot of respect for you, and I think their parents probably do as well. Do you get a lot of feedback from parents talking about how your influence has helped their kids?
You hear it and you feel it, but I don't really talk to the parents ever. So, when they graduate, that's when I usually go out and have beers with the dads and kind of, we go through that process of, remember that one time, and Izzy, we wanted to kill you at this time, and it's all gratitude at the end though, and that's important, watching these guys succeed. And I was telling Chad before, we used to count how many kids we sent to college and graduated, but after 500, we stopped counting. So, right now we have over 40 wrestlers wrestling in Division I athletics. So we're just cruising through, and we love it. I love coaching.
Very successful story. So tell me about Real American Freestyle. What was like the first conversation you two had about creating what has become one of the newest, most successful combat leagues on the landscape?
I mean, so again, so Hickey said he didn't really talk to the dads, but he couldn't stay away from me. Something, I don't know what it was, but we had a conversation in his room, and I love wrestling. I wasn't as good as Izzy, but I wrestled for a long time, and always thought there could be an opportunity to build this league. So I told Izzy about the idea originally, and he's like, "You're crazy," but then we just talked it through and started to say, "Okay, this could be a reality." And I think what we both connected with is we're both type A personalities, right? We're both super focused. We don't think about failure. And so we were just decided we're going to go all in on this. And obviously meeting you, like we were in our office in Tampa, and just he would fly down and we just have conversations and brainstorm. And Izzy was our linchpin, right, for the wrestling community. So, we went to the NCAAs in Philly, and a lot of people didn't take us seriously. I think there's some doubters. We don't name names, but people didn't really believe in this. But we just, it was a conversation that led to RAF, but it's been an incredible journey. And we're just getting started.
What is some of the resistance, Chad, that you've seen or been affected by from the establishment within the freestyle or amateur wrestling community? Because everything is political in life, and there's got to be politics in freestyle or amateur wrestling as well.
There was quite a bit of it. I think people, again, we were heads down. No one knew who I was. Everyone knew who Izzy was, but we were just, heads down, right? Izzy's an ultimate competitor as well. And he had the ability to set up conversations with people that we were confident that we can, provide, not just with the wrestling community, but Eric, with your production and all the stuff that your creativity and all the value that we were able to create with capital and everything else. We just kept our heads down, right? But I think the people, there's been attempts at this. Everyone wanted to give us their opinions on how this should look.
Sure.
Right. And so if we would have taken everyone's opinions, then we wouldn't be where we're at today. Right. And I think this trio, and obviously has been great because we all bring all this different aspects to RAF, but there's a lot of doubters. I still think every show we go into, there's haters, but
sure.
And Eric, you taught us, with your podcast and being who you were at the WCW, it's like, you don't care. We don't care. So I feel like for us, it's, just keep going down that path. But what's great is, and I always say this to Izzy, every time we do RAS, I get the chills because I think that, what we're giving back to the community of the wrestlers get to feel like superstars. The kids have now professional athletes they look up to. And I look at that side of that ring and I look at him, I tell you, but seeing the kids getting the autographs, my son being one of them, Izzy's kids down there. I just think that's the coolest part about all this is that we're giving a platform that's never been created for wrestling. And that's what gets me excited about this.
Izzy, what was your biggest concern going into this? I mean, there's a lot of obstacles. We're facing them every day. We face new ones that we never thought would exist. But was there one big hurdle that you were afraid we couldn't clear?
I think that when you think about how we went about this, I think the hurdle that we had was just, and it wasn't even a hurdle. Once I got to meet Chad and once I got to know you, it was like, all right, I got two guys that aren't going to listen to anyone else about their vision, right? That we have our own vision of this game, and I think that that's probably the biggest weakness in the sport is everybody wants to listen to everybody else or the guy who writes the check, and a lot of times that's not the right vision for this product. So I think that was probably the easiest hurdle, but the biggest one in general is just sticking to our guns, putting our head down, and just grinding it out, and really sticking to the vision that we have for RAF and how it started, where we want to have, like Chad said, we want the kids to love this sport. We want the sport to be even bigger and better, and we want to leave it a better place than we started, so, we're headed in that direction.
I'm going to get this question to both of you, but I'll start with you, Izzy. Close your eyes, fantasize about where we're going to be 5 years from now. What do you see?
I see we're Dallas Cowboy Stadium. I think we, got huge names in the sport, whether it's crossovers from the UFC, MMA world to the WWE world, and obviously the best wrestlers in the world. I think we just are improving our cards. We're improving the production's getting better. Sky's the limit. Like we say, straight to the top in 5 years.
Chad, you're the business guy. I mean, you put you put the financing together. You put the sponsorships together. You've done so much of the structural work for Real American Freestyle. From that perspective, where do you see us 5 years from now?
I see us as we're a combat sport, and we built an enterprise that is very scalable, like the UFC and WWE and other big sporting empires. And I see us, lifting up the sport. Like the biggest thing we have to do constantly, Eric, you know this, and Izzy, you know this, it's education. Mm-hmm. I'm on calls all the time educating about wrestling. Why is it the fastest growing youth sport? Why is it the fastest growing women's sport? What is the opportunity? And I think for us, like I look at this as we have Kyle Dakes of the world getting big sponsorships from big brands, right? And the younger Kyle Dakes of the world being able to come in and have opportunities to develop, those big 7-figure opportunities to become sizable and professional athletes. And I think we're doing that. So I think in 5 years from now, I hope we're on the same path and that we are sitting here with the same team and have all, celebrating on the success we've had.
Talk about success. The very first event. I mean, from my perspective, I've never done anything that was so challenging in some respects because it had never been done before. Everybody involved on this team has never done this, including me. We've all done aspects of it, right? But pulling together the very first event in an incredibly short period of time, like months, instead of typically what would take a year of pre-production and planning and, putting everything into place, we did inside of 90 days. And that's fun as hell to look back on, pat ourselves on the back. But that night, that very first night, when it all came together, it was one of the most meaningful things I've ever done. You guys have never really been in a position to appreciate how much you've actually accomplished. What was your feeling? I'll start with you, Chad. What was your feeling after the first event?
I mean, I honestly teared up because Hulk obviously not being there and doing all that was obviously, you felt that power, right? And two, for us, I just felt more so how I got to see, like I said, the wrestlers and everyone around us and the vibes they were giving and the energy. I just felt unbelievable. We changed the path for the sport. And that's a great way of saying it. And I just felt that we did something special for a sport that deserved it.
Coming up on 03, this card in Chicago, November 29th, available at Ticketmaster, or if you can't get to the building, go to Fox Nation. They'll help you out. You can join us live. But this card is pretty phenomenal. Let's start at the bottom of the card and work our way up. First match, what do you think?
I'd say one match that Izzy and I both are really excited about is Clay Guida versus Cayden Henschel. Both know how to wrestle, both good wrestlers. Clay is he trained through the UFC and coached. I think this is one that I'm really excited about, and I think the environment's excited, but you obviously want to give your...
Yeah, you got Cayden Henschel, who's a Division III athlete, and he built a huge following in the sport, and he's just so instrumental to these young kids watching on the phone how to do techniques, and not all of them are fortunate like Chase. They don't have a father like Chad who can, will drive them an hour, 2 hours. A lot of them don't have access to great coaching, but Cayden Henschel's really stepped up for the youth, and he really has inspired a ton of kids, to be better at the sport. He's showing technique, and he's just really, really excited this younger generation. And Clay Guida, the wild hillbilly from Illinois, the wild man that, is going to bounce around and go crazy and literally bring the fans to their feet. He's electric. He's a fan favorite. He's older, so the older fellas are going to be rooting on him, and the younger fellas will be rooting on Cayden.
I think also Clay's had the most fights in the UFC, right?
Yes. Yeah, and Clay's a Hall of Famer in the UFC, so he's literally has the most takedowns in the UFC. So we'll see if he can take down that young Cayden Henschel.
I think the point of Cayden Henschel, like giving him a big shout out, like when you go to a wrestling room, you have some of the best wrestlers in the world. Cayden Henschel is a kid favorite. Like you go to a wrestling club, they all know Cayden. They see his shoes, they go there, they go crazy for Cayden. So it's like what is he saying? It's pretty amazing. D3, D2 wrestler. It's become the biggest star in wrestling because of what he gives back and the exposure. So that him on the card is great for the community because he's also showing the wrestlers how to promote. Right?
That's the fun part of watching these young who, they grow up. It's like they come out of the chute knowing how to use social media. It's second nature to them. And some of the older athletes, not quite that familiar with it. So in some ways, your younger athletes are coaching up and teaching everybody else how to use social media. Muggsy's a perfect example from O2.
Yeah, I mean, this is again, me and Izzy make all our decisions together in terms of taking these chances. And we got some hate on the Muggsy Cayden match for this first one. And it turned out to be, again, when they both walked out, they did their walkouts at RAF02, you saw the electricity. You saw it, the electricity of both of them. And I think what the greatest thing that we all saw was all the athletes on that roster embraced them. And they were asking them, hey, how do I use social, like you just mentioned, to be different? Because I think what we're doing with RAF is it's opening up the eyes to the potential of what they can be if they put the time in. So I think that Muggsy and Cayden, like you just mentioned, they're great for the sport and being a part of our cards because they take wrestling very seriously.
And it's such an important thing because obviously television is important to us, and we have a great partner in Fox Nation. Chad, you did amazing work there with Gavin and the rest of the team at Fox. But part of what we need to do as a company is prove, I guess, for lack of a better way of saying it, that we can be an entertainment property. Yes, we're a sport, but we can be an entertaining sport. I don't care whether you're the NFL, the NBA, WNBA, whatever it is, you need to have stars and you need to be entertaining as well. And bringing in some of those younger athletes that are so used to promoting themselves is key to that.
Yeah, I think Fox has been an incredible partner. They come to all of our events and, they support it and they promote it. And they also think that this has the potential to be a mega empire for Fox as well. So it's been great to have them as a partner.
Let's talk about another match on the card. Give me another one you're really looking forward to.
We're going to kick tonight off right off the bat with the high school phenom Bo Bassett, and then you got the old lion, Darrion Caldwell.
I love Darrion.
And me too.
Brings the energy, he brings the charisma.
Darrion better bring a lot of energy because Bo Bassett is a machine, and he his nickname or what they go by is called the machine gun mindset. And that's how he wrestles. He's number one in the country, the number 2 recruit in the country. He's knocked off just the last NCAA champion last weekend. He's knocked off several All-Americans, and he hasn't just beat them by 1 or 2 points.
No,
he's beaten 10-0, 14-0, 15-5 against, returning All-Americans. He's going to push the pace. He doesn't get tired, and he's going to try to take Darrion to the edge, So it'll be interesting to see how, Darrion wrestled Real Woods very competitive in the first 2 minutes of the RAF 01.
Yep.
So, and that was him just kind of, getting prepared to wrestle Real Woods in his own head to kind of see where he's at. Now he knows where he's at. Now he knows who's in front of him. Well, Bo Bassett, the young man's coming. So is Darrion going to be ready to take him out?
Izzy and I were talking about matches, and originally we were going to have Darrion go up against Chad Mendes. And then we were in the office, and I called up Darrion with Izzy. I'm like, hey, Darrion, you want to go against Bo Bassett? Izzy thought he was, crazy. And he's like, I want that match. So Darrion,
really? I'm still surprised. Darrion Caldwell is an absolute legend.
Yeah,
and he really is, and he's fierce. I wouldn't have took the match, but he jumped at it right away.
Look at the picture of him behind you there. He looks like he's a wild man ready to go.
He's a phenomenal athlete, one of the most electric athletes in his time to watch wrestle. Had one of the greatest upsets in NCAA history when he won the NCAA championship. But you never count out Darrion. He's a wild man.
Ain't that the truth? And as much as I'm preaching on Bo Bassett, and I just love the young man, he's got a great family. His little brothers might even be better, right?
Really?
Yes, that's the other cool part. But don't count out Darrion Caldwell. He is a freak of nature, and I'm really excited for that match.
And I will say, I was with Darrion last Saturday, at a wrestling in a tournament, but he looked at me and he's like, "You, Izzy, and Eric, you're changing my life," because this is what he loves wrestling, right? And that's our whole thesis when we started this was, would you go fight, or maybe would you stick with wrestling? I think that's what we're seeing is all the people, all these athletes are coming to Izzy, myself, and everyone saying, "I want to wrestle." Right. So it's actually pretty amazing to see. Right. And that's,
makes your job easier.
Yeah.
You're not selling them, they're selling you.
At first we were trying to get wrestlers, and then, and then now all the college coaches are trying to come out of retirement and join the, it's been amazing. So we're excited.
And I think that, leading into that matchup, the next matchup that we both talked about for a while was Chandler Mendes. That's a great example of two elite athletes. Chandler was an NCAA All-American, walked on, took 5th his senior year, and Mendes was a 2-time NCAA finalist, and both went to the UFC. One fought Conor McGregor, one's about to possibly fight Conor McGregor, and they love wrestling. The minute Izzy called up Chad, and we talked to Chandler's management team, both were jumped. We're super excited about it, and I think that's going to show, like, again, back to what we were talking about earlier, that the love for the sport that they started. And you see Chandler talking about all the time. He's like, I thank God every day that I got wrestling, because if without wrestling, he wouldn't be where he's at today.
How do you see that matchup?
It's interesting. Chad Mendes is right now he's extremely busy hunting. So he's hunting bears, he's hunting, elk, and so he's training in the mountains right now. So I think that has a little bit of an edge. As crazy as
no, it doesn't. It's not crazy because I live not far from where he lives, and if you're up in the mountains chasing elk, which is probably what he's doing right about now this time of year, or mule deer, they're way up high. They're at altitude. They're at 8,000, 10,000 feet. They don't hang down low. Yeah. And if you're crawling up those mountains, 8,000, 10,000 feet, you're in shape.
Yeah.
They're both studs. They're both brick shit houses. They're both in phenomenal shape. I just want to know who's getting the better wrestling training right now. I think that it's a toss-up. I mean, when you look at it on paper, Chandler's a little bit bigger than Chad Mendes, but size doesn't matter. It's all going to be who's got the most reps in and who feels good on that night on November 29th in Chicago.
It's kind of amazing how the crossover is really picking up steam.
Yeah.
And we talked about it going into this, that, boy, if you look at wrestling, it's the oldest sport known to man, right?
Yep.
It's one of the oldest Olympic sports. It's the foundation of 90% of everything you see in the UFC or in MMA in general. But it never really, wrestling aspect of that never really gets the respect or the attention it deserves. Well, now it is, thanks to Real American Freestyle.
I mean, most of a lot of the MMA guys, right, and also WWE, right? There's a multitude of WWE athletes that are currently wrestlers. Chad Gable, he was an All-American. Julius Creed, he wrestled at Duke.
Dolph Ziggler.
Yeah, Dolph Ziggler, Kent State wrestler. But I think it goes to show that wrestling is a strong foundation for MMA, and I think it's really cool that we have the ability to do crossover, that the athletes are getting approvals to be a part of it, because we're not competition to we're not competition to WWE, we're not competition to UFC. We're a great additive to them, because it's allowing the athletes to continue their brand, right? They only compete twice a year in the UFC, maybe 3 times. They can come wrestle with us and continue to build their brand in another form of combat sports.
And as a coach, I would imagine if you were training or managing UFC fighters, you would want your fighters, when they're not fighting, to get their wrestling game as tight as it can be.
Yeah, growing up in the sport of wrestling, you wrestle on Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And that's every week. You're weighing in oftentimes 2 or 3 times every week. You're wrestling between anywhere from 3 to 9 matches every weekend. That's what wrestlers are used to. So when they're in the UFC, they're kind of put on the shelf for a while. And it's you're in the UFC and you fight, then you fight again in 3 months, and it's like, that's not what wrestlers want. Wrestlers want to eat. They want to wrestle all the time. They want to compete. And this is the opportunity for them to not only compete, but they're not going to get hurt, right? In the UFC, there always possibility of broken hands, injuries. Wrestlers at the highest level, there's injuries rarely happen. So they're allowed to compete and they're allowed to do what they love. So,
and they can improve their game.
Yeah.
100%. I mean, most wrestlers, when they go into fighting, they want to learn how to fight. So they almost, oh, I got wrestling down, I don't need it anymore, and then they all lose that. So is exactly what you're saying, Eric. This is huge for them. It's making them all put those shoes back on and get in that stance and grind it out.
And that's what Bo Nichols said. Bo Nichols said point blank when he first signed with us and went to Ariel Helwani, he point blank said, I only compete twice a year. Wrestling's only going to help my UFC game because I need to feel competition, right? So it's giving them the ability to constantly compete. It's a blessing to them because it keeps them on edge.
Next matchup.
Hometown girl, Kennedy Blades. She's facing Alejandra Rivera from Mexico, the girl who took out Holly Holm.
That's right.
And I'll tell you what, Kennedy Blades is a fierce, loyal lioness.
I love Kennedy Blades. I fell in love with that young lady in a healthy way when I met her and her parents. She's just an amazing person. I reached out to both of you guys. I think she was the first person I interviewed, actually. Came to your wrestling school. And she has so much poise, so much class. She's a beautiful woman. She could be on the cover of Vogue. And she gets her kicks out of throwing other women on their head. How do you not fall in love with that, that young lady?
My dad's a wrestling coach. So my dad, and in the sport of wrestling, majority of the time, moms are right there with the dads. Moms are fierce lions on the side of the mat, and that's what my mom was. So Kennedy Blades wrestled for my father when she was 8 years old, all the way up until she was 13 years old. So for 5 years, she wrestled with my dad every day, twice a day, privates in the morning, and with her sister. Well, my mom came to me one day and was like, hey, Izzy, I really need you to take care of Kennedy Blades and help her get to the next level. My mom's a real shit talker, so she was like, she doesn't need you to coach her in wrestling. She needs you to coach her outside of wrestling and help get her to, superstardom, as I was training a bunch of fighters. And I was like, all right, great. I'll take Kennedy in and her sister. And
did you know her before you took her in?
Yes. Okay. Yeah. So it was awesome. I got to coach, one of the cool things about Kennedy Blades, I got to coach her in the 8th grade state finals.
Oh, wow.
And the Olympic finals. So it's
been a crazy story.
Yeah. So it's been a long ride with her. She's a phenomenal young lady. She works her butt off. She is a supreme role model to all young women in the world. She lives the right way. She eats the right way. She's a killer. That beautiful face on her. She's not scared to bash it. She's not scared to put it right through you and slam you. She wants to put on a show.
Good. What is it about her that makes her as special as she is?
I think that all athletes that are great have that unwillingness to lose and the delusion of how good they really are. And I think that she believes she's the best in the world. She believes that she can do whatever she wants to do. It sets her mind to it. And I think that's what stops a lot of great athletes is they don't believe that they could really do it. And when it's time, they maybe get a little too nervous or, Kennedy, she's ice. She's got ice in her veins. And when it's time to go, she goes.
Her mom and dad are really, really, I think, integral to her success. Would you agree?
Yeah, her dad is, her dad never missed a practice, never missed a meet. He's an unbelievable man. What's crazy is Saul is a correctional officer in the Statesville prison. So, he didn't take raises. He didn't take, he didn't go up higher and higher in his career because he couldn't go into a senior level place that he could have if he didn't want to go to practice every day and didn't want to go to wrestling meets. He sacrificed his whole life. And, he's just, and now he's getting it back, which is great because Kennedy's doing so great. He's working his butt off. And her mom is a lieutenant in the Chicago Police Department. And Cindy's a fierce character herself. And, Saul's a fierce man, but Cindy's fierce also, and both of them together is Kennedy Blades.
She's amazing. I can't wait to see her. I was so disappointed in a way when she couldn't wrestle at 01 because of a rule technicality with the NCAA, and it all had to do with timing and technicalities and all that. It was a little disappointing until you pulled Holly Holm out of your hat. And
at 1 in the morning, happened at 1.
Tell me that story.
So I was walking. As he's like, stay close by because I need you. Yeah, he's like, we're going to pull this off. But
because Chad has a checkbook.
Yeah, no, not even for the checkbook. Just said stay close by because, so it was 1 in the morning and we had to talk to her management team. But this is where the respect for Holly came in. But Holly's like, I'm going to do it. and she had no preparation, but that happened because of the rule change that we discussed. We had the same situation with Wyatt Hendrickson, where Wyatt wasn't going to be able to wrestle, and Mason Parrish drove down to possibly take his spot, but he went on Fox and Friends, and then the Pentagon saw it, and he's like, he comes to me and Izzy goes, "You wouldn't believe it, I got a call," and so 2 hours later he was approved to wrestle.
Okay, now here's the part of the story that Chad's not telling you. The part of the story that's really important is the fact that we had Wyatt and we had Fox News that wanted to do an interview. Somebody had to make a decision. Should we put Wyatt on knowing he's not going to be able to wrestle because he didn't have permission at the time from the Pentagon, and replace him with someone else? Or should we just put him out there and to get the most attention we can, which I get that.
Yep.
And somebody named Chad decided, let's just go ahead and put him on Fox Nation anyway, even though he's not going to wrestle. Well, that's what the Pentagon saw. Do I have that right?
You have it mostly right, except I can't take full credit because we were in the lobby of the hotel and Bo Nickel was an idea. And Bo was like, you should go with playing the gimmick, right? Make the surprise. And so that's how it happened. But yeah, it all worked out because Wyatt was able to wrestle. Mason was there to actually call out. And we could talk about this because tomorrow we're going to announce it, but Mason and Wyatt will be wrestling each other. So it did all work out.
It almost like you planned it that way.
Yeah, I mean,
it was awesome. And we, just a shout out to Sean, or Matt from Michigan, the head coach at Michigan. When we caught wind that there was a possibility that the Air Force wasn't allowing him to compete, Sean stepped up right away, put us on the phone with Mason Parrish, for 2024 Olympian, and literally packed his bags that night, drove 5 hours, and then we told him he wasn't going in.
Could we just call out Sean for that? One other thing is when we started this, back to the people that didn't maybe want to get involved. Sean was there day one because he knew this was great for the sport. So he was advising. Izzy and him are very close friendship because Sean was part of Illinois wrestling, and it was just the ability. He was like, I love what you guys are doing, and every time he sees something, he's always like, this is awesome for the sport.
Yeah, Sean is just an amazing guy, and you can see it in his wrestlers at the University of Michigan. They're all first-class guys. They all live the right lifestyle, and they like to call themselves the Michigan men. And I'll tell you what, Sean is first class.
I noticed one of the things that might take away first meeting a lot of these athletes is there's a common denominator, it seems to me, discipline. Probably more discipline than I've seen in most athletes I've been around in my life. Is it a fair observation?
Yeah.
Yeah, the sport of wrestling is tough, and part of what I like to say why wrestling's more different or difficult than other sports is, when you take away that food and water, it's one thing to be able to compete on a full stomach, or compete and with all your favorite foods and, that type of thing. But, a lot of these wrestlers are sacrificing, they're on a calorie count every day, they're running 5-6 miles just to keep their weight down. So, in order to keep your weight down and compete like that, it just gives you a different edge. And like we always like to say, I'd rather run into a hungry bear or full bear than a hungry bear. And when wrestlers are hungry bears, their bellies are empty and they're ready to fight.
Could we set up another match that I think is a good story?
Sure. What is it?
So back to with Hulk, we were at U of I, and it was Hulk, me, Izzy, my son Chase, my wife Selena, and then all the athletes came. So it was Mikey Poeta, who's their head coach, Lucas Bird, who just won the NCAA championship last year, Austin O'Connor, who was an assistant coach of U of I with Hulk, and that's when Hulk's like, brother, these guys got swag. And Izzy, this is pre us. Izzy and I were sitting down and talking. I'm like, you guys are gonna wrestle in RAF. They're like, what is this, right? And you fast forward to again another Chicago matchup that Izzy grew up with. Izzy was part of both these guys' lives at some point. But Austin O'Connor, assistant coach of U of I, 2-time NCAA champ, versus Austin Gomez, RAF champ. But you want to kind of give a rundown of both these guys?
So what's pretty cool about this is when we first started talking about like what are just dream matchups, just for RAF in general. And everybody I talked to in Illinois was like Austin O'Connor versus Austin Gomez. They wrestled in the elementary 6 at Bantam 8 and under state finals.
Oh gosh.
And literally Austin Gomez beat him. And that sparked the rivalry. And Austin Gomez is a phenomenal athlete, wrestled in the Olympics, 2024 Olympics for Team Mexico, went to Glenbard North High School, multiple time state champion, multiple time All-American, wrestled at Iowa State, got a bunch of concussions, thought he was done. Austin Gomez thought he was done wrestling. Well, then he took some time off, regrouped, saw some real specialists and really took care of himself. And he went to the University of Wisconsin, and then, went to the University of Michigan, and now he's thriving. So it's exciting because Austin O'Connor has been the greatest. As of right now, he's the most successful wrestler to wrestle from Illinois in our whole state. He's won 5 kid state titles, 4 high school state titles, and 2 NCAA state titles. So now he's trying to make the Olympic team. So this is a barn burner. This is going to be a match not only for the fans, but for the true wrestling diehards in Illinois.
Yeah, and sorry, I got it wrong. Austin Gomez isn't a champ, but he is going to be the winner of this match. Will be facing
Yanni,
a current RAF champ, Yanni.
And Yanni's sitting back. He's sitting back and it's interesting because if I'm Yanni, I don't know if I want to wrestle Austin O'Connor. I just don't. Austin O'Connor is a tenacious animal. He will choke you. He will fight you. He will bite and scratch. He is just and Austin Gomez is a flashy guy. He'll power through you. He'll throw you in the air. He wants to put on a show where Austin O'Connor just wants to maul you. So
well,
I can't wait.
I was actually talking to Yanni. I was talking to Yanni the other day. He's excited to be in Chicago and watch that matchup because he's gonna be going pretty shortly thereafter on RAF 03. Against the winner.
Yeah, that matchup is just, my dad is a wrestling coach, and he doesn't really get excited for wrestling much. He just, the NCAAs or the youth, he goes bananas for. But when he found out that Austin Gomez and Austin O'Connor were going to wrestle, he said, man, I might go to the event now. So that's how powerful this matchup is.
I got a chance to spend a little time with Austin Gomez, and so inspired by him, when he tells the story of his baby brother and losing his baby brother and shows you the tattoo and how much it means to him. That kind of connection to your family and connection to something that's really, really important as a human being is really inspiring to hear. And it drives Austin. Made the Mexican Olympic team, I believe. Left his home, went to Mexico and trained and competed and made the Mexican Olympic team after a series of concussions and having doctors telling him you should never wrestle again. He found a way to do it.
Yeah, he's special. Special guy. One of the coolest things about Austin Gomez is I used to wrestle with his dad. So I was a really good wrestler growing up, and his dad was a littler guy. Now he's a bigger guy. Sorry, Hector.
It's not a secret, is it, Hector?
Right. But I used to wrestle with Hector, and we got to watch Austin grow up. He wrestled with always training with us as young kids, and then when I started coaching, I got to start coaching Austin O'Connor. So I've just been so close to both of these guys. I'm not really sure who's going to win though.
And I also say it was cool to see Austin Gomez, come in real quiet. He was lucky to go up against Lance Palmer and Lance to drive the villain out of Gomez. And then when Gomez when he beat Lance and he came in and he did the Michigan Ohio State flag in the ground on the mat, I thought it was really cool to see the heel come out of Austin Gomez.
One of the cool things about the whole Gomez family is Austin has a sister. He has 2 sisters, and both of them wrestle in college, and both of them are national champions. So when we put together this Chicago card, it made sense to bring Austin's sister. So we have Alexis Gomez wrestling the former UFC champion Frank Mir's daughter, Bella Mir. So Bella Mir, she's the first UFC signed sponsored athlete, NIL athlete from the UFC. and she grew up with Dana White as her uncle, and she's on the card. So we got Frank Mir's daughter,
amazing,
Bella
really.
Mir, against Alexis Gomez, and that's going to be a great matchup also, as they're both going to be competing for the NCAA title this year in college also. So they're at the same weight. We get an early preview in RAF 03 in Chicago.
I think that's pretty cool. RAF gets to they get to preview that match. That's going to be the NCAA finals at RAF.
Yeah, and I grew up working at Jackson Wink MMA in Albuquerque, New Mexico, with a bunch of fighters. And years ago, Frank Mir showed up there, and Frank Mir showed up, and he had a little daughter, just a little girl, just 4 or 5 years old. And now we're 15 years later.
Now you're booking her.
Now she's a star of our league, so we're super excited to have Bella Mir, in RAF.
What does Bellamere have to do to win this match? What does she have to overcome?
Okay, Bella is like her father, mean as a dog on a bone. She does not play, and if she gets it, she will rip it off, and that's Bella's game. She's a competitor. She never has no fear. She's known for 10 seconds left in the match hitting the move and winning the match. She's known for never giving up, and she is just tenacious, and if she sticks to that game plan, it's going to be her night. But you got to remember, Alexis Gomez has been getting her ass kicked by her brothers her whole life. So she's tough as nails, and they're shooters at the Gomez Academy, where Bella Mir is more of a brawler type. She's great at all aspects of the sport, but the Gomez are shooters, they're executioners. So I think if Bella can shut her down, she'll have a great night. But if Alexis Gomez moves her feet, hits those quick outside shots, could be a long night for Bella Mir.
I'm excited for this matchup. Izzy's been talking about this match since really starting RAF. Big focus for us was getting these female matches. Fastest growing sport in the United States is women's wrestling. So I think when we were in Cleveland, we did RAF 01. My wife, for example, knows about wrestling through us, but she's like, man, I really loved that match with Sarah Hildenbrand and Holly's match. Those were her favorite matches. So it's great that we're going to have in Chicago 2 cards for 2 titles, and I think it's going to be a really exciting night. But we're really excited to get Spencer Lee into the organization. It's been something when we were in our my office in Tampa. Izzy's Izzy's Iowa guy went to he
Tried to
go there, didn't go there, but big fan and supporter, and we finally got Spencer on the card.
He's going to take on Andrei Yatsenko from Ukraine, and he was supposed to wrestle on the last card. But what happened was we had Roman Bravo Young get hurt, and then the card got all switched around. So now Yatsenko's coming out of Oklahoma, Stillwater, and he's taking on Spencer Lee. So that's going to be a barn burner. I think that Spencer's the guy. He's probably the best wrestler in the world at that weight class, top 2, 3 in the world at that weight class. And Yatsenko is a third. He got third in the world championships in 2020. So it'll be interesting to see if Spencer can go put up some points, and we think he will. I mean, he's a
What's
crowd
Yatsenko's
favorite.
strengths?
He's a European style wrestler. They're very tactical. They're very tactical. They're very technical. He's going to try to catch Spencer. He's not going to go at him like a Bo Bassett or some of those guys where they're just going to fire wrestling moves. So he's going to probably play tactical games and hopefully try to catch Spencer, but there's no way.
What's Spencer's strength?
Spencer's an animal. He's got a great inside tie. He's got a great carry. He's got a great single leg. And he just can wrestle in all positions. Spencer Lee is a freak of nature, and he's one of the best wrestlers that I've ever watched. And I've been in this sport for a long time.
Do we think if Spencer wins, he's going to go for the RIF title against Tommaso?
Yeah, so what's cool about Spencer wants the belt. Spencer wants it all, so it's exciting because, when he's looking for matchups, Tom and Terry Brands are like, just give us whoever. We'll take whoever. So, but we also want to create awesome matchups for our guys or for the fans, and also get these guys better to experience. And we wanted to put them against a foreigner. So I don't know. I just think Spencer's is going to be a very tough nut for anybody to crack. And
but
it'd be pretty fun to see him and Tomasello for the belt.
And I mean, Tomasello he's excited about wrestling Spencer. He's talked about it before. And the crazy thing is, wasn't Matt Ramos the one to beat Spencer?
Yeah. So what's crazy is Matt Ramos, who which is nuts, who Tomasello beat twice now. Matt Ramos beat Spencer Lee in the semifinals of the NCAAs to defeat him from his 4th NCAA title. So now Tomasello's beat him. And what RAF is, what I'm really proud of, and what makes it so special is these guys are getting their swag back. So you got a guy like Nathan Tomasello who might have been forgotten about.
Yeah.
Now he's up. He's ready to roll. His confidence is back. He's calling out Spencer Lee. When the hell would that ever happen? You know, I mean, you got Austin DeSanto was kind of in a drought. You know, he goes to RAF 02. He texts Nico Magaludis. Now he goes to the Dave Schultz Open, wins that tournament and texts his guy in the finals. I mean, RAF.
How about Real Woods beating
back?
How about Real Woods beating Caldwell, going to the Worlds with you and taking 3rd?
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, it was funny because we were talking about, all right, like what were some hurdles, I guess, or some things that, and it's like, well, the hurdles where everyone thought like, oh, these guys shouldn't wrestle before the world championships or that's like not good for them. But they all needed it. They all needed the swag. They all needed to feel good. I mean, Real Woods goes out there, pins Darrion Caldwell, goes out there and talk about another matchup that we want to talk about. Real Woods, Jordan Oliver. Jordan Oliver is a 2-time NCAA champ from Oklahoma State. And Real Woods is a 4-time All-American, and he's our RAF champion. So Real goes out, places 3rd in the World Championships, only the 2nd guy in 20 years. At 66 kilos, 145 pounds, it is the most difficult weight class in American history for the Americans to medal at the World Championships or the Olympics. Real Woods did that this year, fresh off of the RAF match. So we're excited. He's going to go against Jordan Oliver, Oklahoma State guy. One of
the first guys we actually talked to about the league is you called him in my office. And
yeah,
he was on board, but I think this is gonna be a great matchup. But Real Woods, man, he's got some swag.
Real Woods, I think there's 2 people that impressed me so much immediately: Kennedy Blades and Real Woods. Woods,
too Izzy style guy.
Real Woods reminds me of like a 2025 badass version of James Dean. Yeah. He just walks into the room. He's 145, 150 pounds off the street, right? If he's not cutting weight, he walks into a room and he's like 6'7", 275, and everybody stops doing what they're doing to notice that guy that walked in the room. He's got some aura, man.
So I was training John Jones down in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and I was training all these fighters. Well, obviously my love for wrestling is ever since I was 9 years old. Anybody knows where to find me at 3:30 in the wrestling room. Where I don't know, wherever I'm at, I'm going to be in the wrestling room at a high school wrestling practice or a youth wrestling practice. Well, John Jones would train at 10 in the morning and he would train at night, 8 or 9 o'clock at night. So at 3:30 in the afternoon, I was bored in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And at the same time, I was coaching a high school wrestling team. I was a head coach of a high school team in Chicago. So I was going back and forth. And I wanted to find a missing ingredient of what our team needed to propel us to be, we were 8th in the country, 10th in the country. We won 8 state titles in 10 years, but the goal was to be the best and to put together just a phenomenal group of guys that motivated each other and worked really hard. And somebody to piss everyone off. And I was looking for that kid in Albuquerque, New Mexico. So you go on the message boards and you're like, hey, Izzy's here, come on guys, who wants to come to Chicago and go to my high school? Well, all the best wrestlers in New Mexico show up. 3-4 hours away, everybody came. It was the who's who in New Mexico. And I was like, dude, this is going to be great. I get to pick one of these dudes. And all of a sudden, this little shit comes out of the side corner. And he's like, hey, coach. He was probably 12. He was probably 80 pounds. But he walked him over to me like he was 6 foot, 150 pounds. Yeah. And he was like, hey, coach, who you want me to go with today? And I was like, well, you're the littlest dude here. Just grab that guy. Get out of here. I'm looking for some stud that's going to come to my high school team immediately and be on our team to, get us into the top 5 in the country. So I just kind of shrugged Real off, like, we'll come back to you, 10 minutes later, Real comes up to me. He's like tapping me on my back. He's like, who's next? And you're like, what? I look over, and the guy, that was 30 pounds bigger than him, bloody, busted nose, busted eye, Real mauls him. And he's like, Izzy, who's next? At that point there, I knew I didn't care about any of those kids. Real Woods was my guy. Yeah, so Real Woods moved to Chicago, wrestled with us, won 3 state titles, 4, and it was crazy when I was getting Real to come to Chicago, because parents aren't fond to send their kids away.
No, they're not.
They don't want that. Well, we had a dream. My good friend, a guy I wrestled with all my life, was an assistant coach at Stanford. And when we were talking to Real's parents and just talking, and I was in the back with his dad, and my phone rang, and it was my buddy from Stanford, because another wrestler was at Stanford. So I was like, hey, how you doing? That's my coach, my buddy from Stanford. And Real Woods' mom, she finally opened her eyes. She finally started liking old Coach Izzy. When I said, yo, I could get your boy to Stanford. And that was a dream school for Real.
And yeah, I was just going to say, that story is such a fascinating story. And I heard it from Real's father when I was with him in Michigan, in that when Real was like 5 or 7 years old, he was at some sports memorabilia show and saw a Stanford jersey and told his dad, someday I'm going to go to Stanford, a version of that story. And he did, and he graduated.
Yeah, and
partly thanks to you.
What was crazy is he graduated in 3.5 years. It was in the middle of COVID.
Isn't that fascinating? How somebody can be that proficient as an athlete, which he is. Yeah. Real Woods is exceptional as an athlete, but graduate from Stanford in 3.5 years.
Yeah, and give Real a lot of credit, but let's not take any away from Jordan Oliver. Yeah. I mean, this guy is a human highlight. He was the number 1 wrestler. He won 2 NCAA titles. He beat my boy Tony Ramos before. So Jordan Oliver has one match. He made the Olympic team, but we couldn't qualify the weight for the Olympics. So when Jordan, the world championship, yes, for the Olympics. So Jordan technically couldn't go to the Olympics because we couldn't qualify the weight. So they were sending guys to qualify this weight, and nobody can do it, even though Jordan was probably top 4 or 5 guy in the world at that point. So Jordan's dusting off his shoes and coming back, and he thinks he's going to take out Real Woods, but I'm not sure, man.
I talked to Jordan this morning. First of all, very laid back, very, very, very humble. Quiet guy, but very determined.
Yeah, one of the matches I'm really excited to have is the 2024 Olympic champ, Tazhudinov. He is considered pound for pound biggest star in wrestling. He's going to take on Tony Cassioppi. He's a 4-time NCAA All-American from the University of Iowa. Now he's assistant coach at the University of Wisconsin. So they're recruiting some of our guys. We're talking to them, and we get Tazhdinov's contract done, and it was like, okay, cool. The next person on the list, Ben Askren and I are talking. He's like, oh, Cassioppi would do it for sure. I call Cassioppi up. I'm like, hey, you ready to rock and roll? I said, yeah, you got Tazhudinov. He goes, no problem, let's do it. So we got a hometown guy from Illinois taking on the number 1 wrestler in the world. So we're super, super excited about that matchup.
So am I. Yeah. That sounds exciting.
I'm telling you.
You can never count any. People think that Tony's a big underdog, but you can never count anybody out with that.
Well, I always like to make the joke, and I made the joke last week about Pat Downey wrestling Jake Varner. I said, even if I had a knife, I probably couldn't take down Jake Varner, But some of these guys are really, really, really good at wrestling. The coolest part about this matchup is Tony doesn't care. Yeah. He's going to throw the fur at this guy. He's not going to go out there to try to protect himself. He's going to go out there and try to win. Like Chad said, anything can happen, and Tony Cassioppi believes it.
First of all, I grew up in an Italian neighborhood in downtown Detroit, and I would never underestimate anybody named Tony Cassioppi.
He's going to like that. And what's cool about Tony Cassioppi is he's the assistant coach at the University of Wisconsin, and his 2 brothers are top wrestlers in the country right now. So he has 2 younger brothers and a sister who's top wrestler in the country also.
I think what's also important is that Tony is in a wrestling room every day. He's training every day. I see, you know, people are like, is he really in shape? Is he wrestles every day? And I think when you could be running, lifting, whatever you want. I was talking to Lance Palmer about this earlier today. When you wrestle around in the wrestling room, it's a totally different endurance level.
I always tell people, I get tired tying my shoe, but I could wrestle for a half an hour easy. You know, it's just
What is that? That is a really weird.
I was thinking about you earlier today. I'm like, because I was joking. I was at a wrestling with Darrion the other day, and I was using my strength. I was gassed. I was like, what the heck? And I was thinking about Izzy. I'm like, Izzy doesn't do anything to like cardio wise or anything, but he goes into a wrestling room and he's wrestling live for 30 minutes a day. It's incredible.
Yeah, I love wrestling, and you know, it's all about, you know, it's your comfort zone, right? It's your mind, and you know, I just try to put myself in that state of mind, and you know, it's just funny though, because if you wrestle every day, you can do anything, and that's how I feel about myself.
And it's where you probably feel most at home.
Yeah, you know, Sunday wrestling, every wrestling tournament is on Sundays for the youth. So I never got to go to church. So I consider wrestling church for me, and I try to go every day.
One of the things, Chad, that I'm most excited about, again, because I'm coming at this from the television opportunity, right? And you and I talked, and Izzy talked early on about, boy, if we could ever figure out a way to get sports betting and Real American Freestyle together, it could change the face. Because let's face it, the NBA, you know, the NFL, every sport is driven, at least in the United States and really around the world, by sports betting.
I mean, I've caught myself gambling on ping pong at 2 a.m. So,
well, yeah, but
I mean,
there's more to that story. We don't need to hear it because, you know, somebody could be listening.
There you go.
Before we wrap up, guys, there's going to be a lot of people in Chicago looking forward to this event, November 29th. It's going to be great. Who are some of the celebrities, Chad, we can expect to see that are going to join us?
I think you're going to see a lot of, you know, ex-MMA champions. You'll see a lot of football players. You'll see
Give me names. Come on now.
Well, I mean, I think we'll see Bilal Muhammad in that audience. I know David Carr called him out on RAF02, and he's I think.
No, when you say call them out, do we need to have like extra security on hand? Are these guys going to?
I mean,
do we need to do a pull apart? What do we need to plan ahead for?
You know what it is. He's talking about. They're both very confident in themselves. Bilal being a UFC champion, #1 contender, he is not afraid of David Carr at all. And David Carr being 5th in the world, and also an NCAA champion and a top tier wrestler, he thinks that Bilal's no matchup for him. So, you know, there's gonna be some, you know.
What a devious laugh you have, Izzy.
I love it.
I mean, you laugh like a promoter.
Yeah, I just love the storylines, and these guys really think they can beat each other. You know, to me, it's just a dream. You know, especially what Chad's brought in with this cross-pollination with these UFC stars, and
what
just
we brought in.
But you know, just overall, Chad's brave enough to think outside the box.
Right.
You know, where I'm a wrestler, so I love the wrestlers, and I think outside the box, except more now with Chad, me, with all of us teamed up. But just having that opportunity to have no fear to go get all these different athletes and bring them into our league, and all these athletes love wrestling. I mean, we're going to see a lot of RAF champions are going to be in town. So Helen Maroulis will be there. All our belt holders will be there in the stands. So we're super excited about that.
Guys, thank you very much. This has been awesome. And I've gotten to know you guys a little bit better just sitting here talking in this environment, because we're always running 100 miles an hour in generally opposite directions. I'm looking forward to 03, and I'm looking forward to the next 5 years with you guys.
Well, Eric will probably be back in a couple of weeks talking about RAF 04.
Can't wait.
Let's do it.